Okay, I'm going to give a short presentation on what the Pay Equity Act is and give the requirements for the act, and then I'm going to go into the software demonstration for Parity Software. In Oregon, on January 1st, 2019, Oregon passed the pay equity law. There are several components of this law, and I'm going to specifically focus on the prohibition against unequal pay, although there are several other components that are associated with that. So under this act, it's an unlawful practice to pay one employee different from another employee that is performing comparable work or work of comparable character. This law in Oregon applies to any employer in the state of Oregon that has 2 or more employees, and there's several different protected classifications. Like in California, they just focus on gender, race, and ethnicity. In Washington, they focus on just gender. Oregon says, no, there's 10 protected classifications. Basically, everyone will fall into at least one protected classification. So it's really focusing on, are we paying 2 people differently who are performing comparable work? The law describes what comparable work is, and it's work that has substantially similar knowledge, skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. This new law also expands what compensation is. So it takes a look at total compensation, which includes salary, it can include PTO or vacation or sick time. It's everything that has value that the employer is providing to the employee. Once we identify that 2 jobs are comparable, then we have to take a look at salary for the employees. And the law says that when we take a look at the difference in salary, these are the only objective reasons why there could be a difference in salary. For example, if one person has more seniority than another person, or one person has a better performance evaluation, or one person maybe travels more. So these are the only objective reasons that can be used to support a difference in salary. Under this law, it also expanded out the penalties. It now includes treats this as a wage claim, and attorney fees are now included if an employer, if there's a difference in salary between 2 employees and we cannot identify that there's an objective reason for that, an employee can bring a claim, and if the employer owes anything, if that difference is not supported, the employee would be entitled to 2 years of back pay plus the attorney fees for the employee. So to comply with this new law, there's 3 different steps. First, it's grouping jobs of comparable character, and that goes back to that knowledge, skills, effort, responsibility. Number 2 is evaluating what is the total compensation that this employee is receiving, and then identify any objective reasons if somebody that's performing work of comparable character, if there's a difference. So being able to identify the objective reasons for the pay discrepancy. And that's what's called a pay equity analysis. And as we talked about earlier, the objective reasons would only be the 7 reasons that were identified. Once we identify that there is a comparable job, there is a difference in salary that cannot be supported by objective reasons, now we have to resolve the pay discrepancy. So going into Parity Software. Parity Software was developed by myself. I'm an employment attorney. I developed the content of Parity Software with my years of experience in human resources. Steve Baker is the Chief Technology Officer, and he has 25 years of software engineer experience. He developed all of the algorithms that are embedded within the software program. And Parity Software groups the comparable jobs, just like step 1, performs the pay analysis, stores all of the information in a cloud-based system that we performing the analysis over and over again as the employer needs to perform the analysis, and then it has value-added reporting, which I'll show. Okay. Now I'm going to walk you through the demo for Parity Software. Now I'll start from the beginning. This is where the company can really customize it for the company. For example, and these are the broad categories, the 5 categories that the law says if the jobs are similar, then they would be comparable work. Here's where, let's say I am a security company, and the physical effort that's going to be required for the position. This is where they can weight the percentage. But it's percentage weighting for the company as a whole. It'll make more sense a little bit later. So effort and responsibility, where knowledge and skills may be lower if it's a security company. And we'll show what that is later on. Here are the 7 categories for the employee for the objective reasons that we identified earlier. And here's everything that can be included for total compensation. So if a company offers a pension retirement plan or a signing bonus, they would select it so that we can include it later when we're doing the analysis for the employees. And here's where the company can upload the logos, which would later be inserted into the job description. One of the value-added reports. That was in the setting page. The locations, because location is one of the objective criteria that can be support a pay discrepancy, the employer is able to upload job locations. And now we get into completing a job description. This job description can either be sent to, or the template can be sent to a person like a manager or the employee themselves, or it could be accessed by an HR person or somebody who's completing the job description for the employee. Here's the basic information regarding the position. Anything that's input would be show up later on in the job description. The general purpose, and this is all narrative that could be copied and pasted right into it. This is able to guide if there's questions on what's required for the section. Clicking the question mark and provides the help. There's also another help here that if I have a question or I need technical support, this is hooked up to our software help. Here's where we would put the key category of responsibilities, let's say customer service, and the minimum years of experience that's required for customer service, and the percentage of time in a year that they do this function, and some of the duties, answer phone, greet customers. Eventually, the next module that we're building is going to bring over the key category of responsibility and drop it into a performance evaluation. So that's why I've broken out for the job description the key category of responsibility so that we can use it later for job performance evaluations. That's also one of the reasons that could be a difference in pay. So it's just, I think it's up to 6 key categories of responsibility, and it'll show you whether you have 100% of the time. And this could be perform other duties as assigned, any other key categories of responsibility, any additional skills and qualifications, driver's driver's license. And then this gets into the exempt and non-exempt. So does the position earn at least $455 per week? Whether it's administrative, these are the categories to identify whether it is going to be an exempt. And probably this person would not be exempt. And then it actually identifies whether the position is exempt or not here. So that is the job description piece of it. Again, we can either email this pay equity analysis to the manager or to the employee, or complete the assessment ourselves. And this takes the broad category skills that we provided, the weighting on the setup page, and then gives it some subcategories, so interpersonal skills. And the manager of the company or the HR person completing this would identify what is the minimum level of interpersonal skills that's required for this person to perform the job. So let's say it's an admin, an administrative assistant, because they're doing customer service, maybe we want intermediate level. Communication, what level? This is the second subcategory on competencies. So what level is needed at a minimum level? This person would not need any management or leadership if they're an admin. They would need some teamwork, some customer focus, problem solving, probably not. Then what are the minimum level? What's the technical skills? Another subcategory that's required. And this gives the companies, because there's so many different technical skills that may be required, so the company would merely type it in, then identify whether it's preferred or required and what level is required. Now we get to the next broad section. There's the subsection, education, at a minimum, and then what is preferred. And the preferred acts as a cap. When we start taking a look later on, the minimum level is used to group the comparable jobs. The preferred level is when we're taking a look at the objective reasons for a pay discrepancy. When we start getting into the analysis for the employee side of it, it's acting as a cap. For example, if I'm going to apply for a McDonald's cashier position, I have a law degree. So a law degree, I would not get additional points having that law degree because it's not relevant to the cashier position at McDonald's. So this is acting as a cap. So what would be preferred? It would be the maximum that would be job relevant for education. Then we get into the experience at the minimum level, and again at the preferred level. Another subcategory is any languages that are required, and any certification or licenses that are preferred or required. Effort. This is problem solving, and my physical effort. This is for ADA. So if a person is unable to perform the job, we would need to ultimately make accommodations for the person. So we need to know, as we're completing this job description, what are the physical requirements for the job. Getting into the decision-making process, the quality of work, and the accuracy at a minimum level again, whether the person handles confidential data, and whether they supervise. Then the final category is the working conditions. It gets into the hours and the environment. A couple things. Based on what we've completed within the pay equity component, each one of those subcategories had weightings behind it, as well as the broad categories. And that produces a score that we can see here. So that first step in doing a pay analysis, it's grouping jobs of comparable character. So based on the information that we just input, we now will see which jobs are of comparable character based on the weightings that the score that was produced. We can see here's all these 3 jobs are grouped together, these 2 jobs are grouped together. And if we take a look and we say, you know what, HR, director of HR should not be grouped together with the salesperson, we can go right back into the pay analysis and make some of the changes that would change the weighting or the score. This also produces a job description based on the information that was input. Any of the information that was input would show up here. There's the general purpose, the essential duties. There was the broad category and all the subcategories. And this language, as you can see, there's more language built in the back side of it. So that way the manager or the HR person would just select whether at a minimum level they need expert or entry level. Then all of this language is built on the back side of it, depending on what you select. Oh, the job description. Once we have the job groupings now we're going to take a look at the employee side. Now we know that these jobs are jobs of comparable character. So now we go to step 2 and we start taking a look at the employees and the total compensation. We've input some employees here already, and there's 2 pieces to this for the employee, to do the pay analysis for the employees. The first is the employer portion that needs to be completed, and this is when the employee first started in the job, whether it's a union position or not, whether the employee is paid by a salary on an annual basis or paid by an hourly rate. It was paid annually. And then everything that we input in the beginning, if we selected paid time off, that's why this is all showing here. It doesn't have the long list of things, only those that the employer has selected. There's a performance evaluation on how this person, or what rating they received in the performance evaluation. That's one of the 7 categories, so we've included it here. And then the employee also has, we can email this to the employee, which is recommended, or we can access the form ourselves. And the employee would identify what the location is that they're working. And this gets into the preferred level. So we already have the job grouping based on the minimum. Now, if I say here that I'm working at, I've applied for a cashier position at McDonald's, but I have a doctorate degree, it's not going to give me additional points here, but it at least asks the employee, we will capture their level of education and their level of experience. And then the optional demographic information, if we want to like in Washington, do the analysis based on males and females or not specified. We want to do it, filter it based on the demographics we can. Once all the information is entered for the employee, these are the job groupings, the bandings, and you can see that in this group, this is the group with the regional sales manager and the director of HR. This is one band that was together. There's the 2 employees that are in that band. We can take, and here's the employee score based on the information that was entered by both the employer and the employee, and the total compensation. So there's a summary report there. Now this gets into the pay analysis. Now we have our comparable jobs with the banding. We have the employees in the bands, so we know which employees are in each band. And we can see here that the employer, in order to be compliant with the Pay Equity Act, they're going to have to do some analysis, do the pay analysis, and there's a $5,000 problem. We can see that this employee is fine. There's no employees in this band. Here's our 2 employees here. They're fine. But we have a problem here in this band. And you can see the $5,000 is right here, that the IT person is making more than the HR specialist, HRIS specialist. But the score is actually, so this score is, here's the total compensation. They're making more, but their score, this one's making less money, and it has a higher score. And we can see, just so you can, we didn't show the score on this page here because we want the HR person or to take this report to management to share why when they start doing some of their analysis. But we didn't want the scores to be shown just in case people start focusing more on the scores instead of just focusing on the discrepancy and the objective reasons for the discrepancy. But we can see Right. So let me show you what. Okay, so we have this, and this is stored on the cloud. We don't want to change. We want a record. We want a record of where we were. So this is stored, but we want to be able to identify the objective reasons. One of those 7 reasons, if there is an objective reason for the discrepancy, we can create a worksheet here, and let's say we're going to do it for 2019. So we're going to do an analysis. Here's where the worksheet comes in. So now I can go here. Wait a minute. This is, oh, sorry. Here's the one I just created. Here's the discrepancy. And now I can see the reason for the discrepancy here is here's the 7 reasons. The additional training or a prior, they have a more relevant experience, or maybe there's a travel, or maybe we're going to need to give this person an adjustment in salary. So let me means $5,000 to be. So let's just say that we're going to give this person a salary adjustment because we cannot identify an objective reason for the discrepancy. It's going to be 100. It's going to represent 100% of the discrepancy, and we're going to say that we're just going to do an equity adjustment. We save that. This now turns yellow and the reason it's yellow, employer can print this and then has to make the changes in the payroll system. This is not connected to the payroll system. We wanted to make sure we identify it as yellow, so that way the employer knows they have to go in and they have to make this change in the payroll system. The next time they upload the information for the employee, the change will be made in the system when they update the employee's salary in the system. 0 adjustments needed. We have our worksheet that identifies the action that we took and why we took that action. And then this would be available to their, this would be stored as well. So this would be used anytime an employer makes a salary, let's say to give raises based on performance evaluations, or we bring in a new employee. We want to make sure that we're paying the employee equitably across the company. So we would go into the reports. So if we see we want to bring in a new payroll, or we add a position here and they fall into this grouping, we know the salary that would need to be paid. Based on which band that they fell into. And the one additional thing I want to show you is right here, the safety officer is falling in band number 6 with 513 points. If we went back in and we thought, you know, we're not a security company, we're really a higher ed. This is the college now, and so we don't value effort or responsibility, the physical effort, or the working environment. We value education and knowledge and skills more than the physical requirements. We update the scores. And then we go back into our report. Sorry. And now the security officer, the points have fallen to 446, and they're falling into the 8th band or grouping. Do you have any other questions? There is a range in the band that goes from this. This one goes from 604 to 574. So when we add, let's say we added it, huh? It doesn't have to be all the same. Let's see. So long as, see, there's a problem here because you can see the 534. This person has a higher point. This one has a lower point, but there's a huge pay discrepancy here. So let's say this one had a higher, let's say this one had 102, and it could be 102 to 91 as long as it's supported by the score as well. Does that make sense? Okay, here's a range as well, 40 to 30. This is not a problem because the points are higher. The employee points are higher. Yeah. Right, right. Any additional questions? I think the employers need help first of all, what is the pay equity, and what's a pay equity analysis? Yeah. And so what is a pay equity analysis? If we do have a discrepancy, how do we identify what the reason is for those discrepancies? So I think it's understanding what the pay equity law is, understanding that this is a tool to actually help to comply with it, but then once they have the information in the system, then how do they go through that analysis and determine why is there an objective reason for the discrepancy in pay between two individuals? It's probably the HR person working with the senior leadership, or it's somebody working with the senior leadership, because this is at a company level to have to do the analysis. Okay, thank you.